Hello everybody, it's Joan coming to you today from Joan's Kitchen, and today we are going to be making a dessert that originated in Italy. It's called strawberries Romanoff. That's how it's known here. As always, if you have any questions, please go ahead and drop a comment in the comment box, and if the question comes up while we're live, I will try to answer it for you. If not, I will drop a comment to answer your question as we go forward. So this is a dish that originated, we believe, in the 16th century, so the 1500s in Italy, in the Puglia area, the Puglia region, and it's basically made with egg yolks. So I've got my eggs here. It has some kind of fruit. I'm going to use strawberries today, strawberries Romanoff. It's sweetened with sugar, but today I'm going to use honey. This is a version that uses honey, which is, I really like it. You can have the flavor of the honey, and it's very lightly sweet. It's not quite as sweet as sugar is. And today I'm using some honey from Italy that you can actually get at Trader Joe's. The egg custard is made by cooking egg yolks and the sweetener, the honey or the sugar, over a very low flame, either in a double boiler or, like today, I have a very heavy little pot here that I'm going to be using. This is cast iron with enamel over it, so this is nice and heavy. That'll work really well. The custard is flavored with some kind of liquor. Today I'm using a sweet wine from Tuscany. It typically was Marsala wine. You could also use sherry, which doesn't have to be sweet. It's really more to give it a little bit of flavor. This recipe also calls for a little bit of sour cream, and it calls for a little bit of whipping cream. And my strawberries I have already sliced, and to sweeten it up just a little bit more, I'm going to macerate the strawberries, which means that I'm just going to add a little bit of sugar to them and stir them up, and the sugar is going to start to break down some of the strawberries and make it a little bit more liquidy. So I've got my sugar right here. I'm pouring it over my strawberries that are already sliced, and I'm just going to give that a little stir. And while we're preparing the custard and putting everything else together, it's going to sweeten the strawberries lightly, and it's going to start to have them give off a little bit of juice. You don't need very much, but I just really wanted to sweeten them up a little bit. We're very lucky here where we live. We have a really nice little vegetable stand nearby, and they have fresh strawberries that are from California all year round. They're from different regions of California depending on where strawberries are in season at any given time. But it's just a really nice treat to have that place available because they always have really good fresh strawberries. I'm going to set this over to the side for now, and I have my egg yolks taken out of the shells already, and so I'm going to go ahead and put my egg yolks in my little pan here, and I have my honey already measured out, so I'm going to add that into the egg yolks. And before I turn the burner on under the pan, I'm going to go ahead and mix this up, which is important because I don't want the egg yolks to start cooking or curdling. So I've got my hand blender here, and I'm going to mix this up without turning the pan on. And the whole idea here is to cook the eggs a little bit so we're not eating a raw egg custard. It's a cooked custard, but it's also to whip some air into the egg. And I already have my sweet wine, my sweet Tuscan wine measured out. So as I'm whipping this with the heat on really low, I'm going to add the wine little bit by little bit. It's going to incorporate a lot of air into the egg yolks, and it's going to make a custard. I'm not going to do this step all the way through. I've done this step in advance, but I do want to show you what it looks like. So to start with, what I've done is simply beaten together the egg yolks with the honey. I hope that you can see that in there. And I'm going to be whipping that up as I have the heat on low, and I'm going to be adding my wine in there a little bit. So let's go. Turning my thing on here. And I'm turning the temperature down low because I don't want this to burn. Here's my wine. I'm going to stop for a moment and show you that there's already quite a bit of air that's been incorporated into the egg whites and the honey mixture. I'm going to let this cook a little bit longer so you can see how it kind of bubbles up and thickens. So here we go, it's already bubbled up and thickened a little bit. In all, it takes about 3 minutes beating it constantly so that we don't get the eggs cooking in there. And I would like to say again, if anybody has any questions while I'm going through this, please feel free to ask. I'm here to help you with that. So once we have that done, and here's the custard that I made a little bit earlier, we are going to be mixing the sour cream into the custard. I've got my sour cream measured out here already. And I'm actually going to go ahead and use the mixer for that. I want to talk a little bit about the history of this dish. Here in the States we call it Strawberries Romanoff, and we think that this was from a restaurateur in Hollywood named Michael Romanoff. Actually, he was in Beverly Hills, and he claimed that he was a count from the Romanoff family, which is kind of timely right now because there's a show on one of the streaming services about the Romanoffs that talks about different people who each claim to be a descendant of the Romanoff family. But that's what it was called. In Italy, the custard here that we have, it's called a sabayon, and it's basically the cooked egg yolks with a little bit of sugar and the air beaten into it, and that's the custard. In Italian, it's zabaglione. In French, it's a sabayon, and they think that it was named after a saint from the area. The French have also adopted it, and it's one of the classic French sauces, and it was written about in the Escoffier cookbook. His version of the Strawberries Romanoff, though, he called Strawberries American. And this was in the 1800s, so it was before Michael Romanoff was around. And it was basically strawberries with whipped cream and a little bit of melted ice cream and some orange liqueur, like triple sec or Grand Marnier, served with it. And it used to be served in what was called a champagne coupe. So a champagne coupe is, if you see movies from the 30s or 40s, the kind of glasses that had a flat area like this and a short stem. That's how they used to serve champagne. They didn't used to serve it in flutes like we mostly do today. And an interesting little side story about the champagne coupe is that legend has it that the size and shape of that cup was modeled on the breast of Marie Antoinette. So there's a little bit of French trivia. So I've got my sour cream mixed in there, and I've got my whipping cream whipped up already, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in here. This dish is also popular in South America, and actually I think it was in Argentina. They said that they use it as a drink, and they add rum to it, and it's actually basically called ponche crema, which means cream punch, but it's very similar to a traditional eggnog that we would have here during the holidays. And if you've ever made a traditional eggnog, it's a very rich, heavy drink that also has egg yolks in it and whipping cream. So this is kind of similar. So in some cultures, it's a drink rather than a custard. So I'm going to go ahead and mix in my whipping cream to this mixture right here. It said to fold it, but I used the mixer, but I'm just going to fold in the last little bit here by hand. And remember, folding just means kind of like turning the ingredients over and over each other because we don't want to break all the air bubbles that are in there. So that is our basic custard mixture there. And I'm going to serve it, instead of in a coupe, I'm going to be serving these in these Mexican martini glasses that I have. You could also serve them in wine glasses. You could be really fancy and have a piping bag to put it in there, which I don't have today. But I'm just going to spoon some of the cream here. And I reserved a couple of the pretty strawberries because I'm going to use those as a garnish on top. So we're going to fill up the cup about halfway with this custard. And then we're going to be adding some of the sweetened macerated strawberries in a layer in there. It's nice to put it in a glass cup like this because it turns out to be just a very pretty dessert. And the recipe that I will share with you makes about 4 servings. If you don't want to do an individual serving like this, you could also just put it in a big bowl, but this is the kind of dish that you want to have in a glass bowl just because it's so attractive. Does anybody have any questions while I'm finishing up here? So now I have my nice big whole strawberries that I saved, and that's my garnish. And here we have it today, a nice summertime dessert. It's lightly sweetened. It's definitely not a light dessert with the egg yolks and the whipping cream, but it's really tasty. This one has just a hint of the honey and a hint of the sweet wine flavor and the lovely strawberry flavor. I'm going to chill that down, and those will be ready to have for dessert tonight. So for this week's episode of From Joan's Kitchen, there you have it, strawberries Romanoff. And
does the recipe double well?
The recipe absolutely doubles well. I think the critical thing about doubling the recipe would be to just make sure that you have a big enough pan, big enough heavy-bodied pan to do your custard on top of a low flame. But absolutely, you could easily double this. You could serve it as I did in individual servings, or you could put it in a bigger bowl. You could even serve it in a big glass dish like this, you know, with the strawberries layered in there just because of the visual effect for it. Do we have any other questions for today? If not, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again next week from Joan's Kitchen. Thank you.